The thing about cosmic horrors beyond human comprehension is that if you try to comprehend it you'll go insane. But if you name it Squid Face Scary and take it only at face value you'll do just fine. If it's beyond human understanding, just don't understand it. He stormed towards Dave, shoving his bewildered audience aside, terrible barbed whip in hand, eyes that seemed to shine with malicious glee. The juvenile hook horror scampered towards the closest door, only to find it locked. Carl lashed out with his whip, a sharp audible crack thundered and echoed in the room. Some members of the audience flinched, even though they were clearly not the target of his unexpected fury. Dave shut his eyes and took a deep breath, prepping himself for the unavoidable bite of the whip. It never came. "You're a grown man who shouldn't be picking on little children," came the venomous voice seeping into the room like a sprawling miasma. Carl stumbled backwards, eyes focused on the figure that emerged from a black portal near Dave. "Who are you?" "Their senile tentacle uncle. I'm their god." The small hook horror clacked his pincers and scuttled towards the eldritch god he had invoked. "Mr. Elfie, so glad you came. Please help me and my pals." The showman laughed, almost dropping his whip as he slapped his thigh with one hand. "That's cute, Mr. Elfie. How utterly comprehensible. You don't scare me, Mr. Elf. The children get to call me Mr. Elfie." "You don't," the eldritch entity silenced the man with a deathly glare. "For a lesser Euclidean mortal whose comprehension does not exceed 3 dimensions, you should address me as Lord Elvari. Try calling me Tentacle Face. I'd like to see you try and live to tell the tale." Turning to look on the frightened faces of his audience and then back at Elvari, Carl steadied himself, one hand clutching his chest. He breathed deeply, eyes darting all over the room, his iron grip tightening around his whip. Gathered his wits and scattered pieces of his courage. "Tentacle Face. Ha! Take that." He shouted in a false bravado that didn't allay the fears of his audience, who retreated to lean against the walls of the function room, and himself. "Take notes, Dave," the eldritch god said, tentacles raised in Carl's direction. "It's time for your first lesson. How to handle human horror safely." The hook horror nodded, pulling out his notebook with a pincer